Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Lemnisk Leadership Podcast, where we speak with industry leading marketing and digital transformation experts and practitioners about all things marketing, data, and technology. I'm Subra Krishnan, your host and the co founder and CEO of Lemnisk. I'm super excited today to be speaking with Sriram Naganathan, President and Chief Technology Officer at HDFC ERGO. Sriram has been associated with HDFC ERGO for over 2 years now. In his present role, he's building and leading digital transformation and innovation for projects designed to deliver positive, measurable, and sustained business outcomes for the company. Sriram has over 25 years of expertise and he's a seasoned C suite leader with a track record of excellence in technology, digital transformation, and innovation for both greenfield as well as established high growth businesses. He's a certified Lean Six Sigma black belt, having successfully delivered 25 plus projects in the lean executing model. Sriram's strength lies in combining analytical, functional communication skills and technical expertise with leadership qualities, reflecting very strong value creation and people development. He's a bachelor's in engineering electronics from Pune University and holds a PGDM from AIMA in information systems. Sriram, a very, very warm welcome to you. And thank you so much for joining us today. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Subra. Yeah, pleasure here as well, and really look forward. And thanks for this opportunity.
Fantastic. Sriram, I think obviously you've had a very storied career for 25 plus years now. Leading digital transformation and executing some of pretty complex digital transformation initiatives, right? So, sort of tracing your own experience leading technology across organizations. Uh, let's start there. What do you think are some of the lessons that sort of stand out to you as you steer these kind of transformation projects and make them sort of customer first?
I think this is a very important question that you've asked, Subra. For us, I think with any large enterprise, any large corporation that we work for, usually, there has to be that strong business case, and very early on in my career, I kind of realized, these were when I was pretty raw and young, I would say, very charged up about new technologies, but couple of implementations is all it took for me to realize that stuff doesn't go far if you don't have that strong business flavor to it, and there's a lot of fun involved in really solving business problems. And that's what I kind of realized it though the hard way, that you really need to have that, nail that first. I mean, getting that real business case clarity. And again, when we say business case, I'm not talking about the nice looking presentations and Excel sheets which with all the numbers projected. But you don't really trying to look at what specific problem that you're trying to solve and what's the benefit that you're going to get out of it. And having the business leaders involved as we go about doing these transformations. I think that is one critical thing that I've realized, that really makes the difference between a successful implementation and one that's not so successful.
So essentially, to summarize, be have a very specific business case, a very specific problem that you're trying to solve. Number one, and the second is aligning some of the key stakeholders, as you called out at step two. Right? Just make sure everybody's aligned around that common purpose, and then the whole thing moves forward successfully. That's sort of your take. What about when you think of stakeholders? Normally, we would think of stakeholders like your internal stakeholders, presumably across functions, right? But obviously, in some of these digital transformation initiatives, one could argue the customer is equally a stakeholder, probably not necessarily present at the table, but obviously the be all and end all of such transformation initiatives. So, how do you do that? How do you make sure that amidst all of this, there is also somebody who's seated at the table who represents the customer or otherwise is taking care of what the customer would say or think that instant?
Very relevant point that you brought up. More often than not, a lot of these requirements really come from the customer. Sometimes it's directly, hearing it from the customer's mouth. Sometimes, it could be, through somebody who's representing the customer's interest. Could be an agent, could be a sales manager from the field, could be an operations guy from the field. But definitely, there is a customer voice that's definitely, central to this piece. Especially in the area that we are talking about. It's highly imperative that the customer voice is heard and becomes really the the main problem that you're trying to solve. From a digital transformation perspective, especially, in the last few years, we have seen maybe it started with COVID, but the increasing relevance of self-service and adoption of self-service solutions, could be on channels like WhatsApp. It could be through bots, it could be through contact centers, it could be through portals. Whatever you would look at it, I think clearly, the adoption is driven by the customer, the end consumer, or it could be a partner, an agent, or a broker. So those, channels more often than not become really, the source for the problem statement itself. Might land up in a corporate office in a glass room through various ways, but and effectively, it has to come from the field.
Interesting, interesting. So in many ways, it's subsumed within the problem statement itself, and therefore the articulation of that problem statement, as you're rightly saying, subsumes what the customer is expecting in a way, right?
In a way, when I said business case, that's really, what I was referring to
Yeah,
as well. The business case is not just about, how much money you are spending versus how much you are going to get in return. That is important. But beyond that, I think the real crux of, what is the problem that you're trying to solve and what's the solution? I think those are the two important things.
fantastic, fantastic. So I think it's fair to say that while you execute transformation projects like these, Sriram, I mean, it was historically always challenging. I mean, we all know the stats. They are beaten to death. 80% of all such digital transformation initiatives fail. We know that. But I would argue that it has never been harder uh, to actually lead transformation projects than now. I mean, we all know the kind of seismic shifts that are happening around us. Post COVID, it started, but I would say, especially in the last 18 months, given the trajectory that AI is taking, right? And I think I've also seen, Sriram, that you've spoken about not just foreseeing the future, but architecting it. That's a phrase which I loved, by the way, and I read about what you said. So, keeping that in mind and keeping the kind of challenges that you are encountering today in mind, the kind of uncertain future that we're heading into, um, what does the future look like for you? And you could take an insurance standpoint here as well. And what I would also request is, maybe not look too far out. Maybe let's look at 2027, for example, or 2028. Um, what does that future look like for you, and what do you think needs to be done to meet that future?
Especially in today's time, it's very important to look a little forward, if not, really gazing through the glass, door into far too much into the future. But uh, a lot of very interesting changes happening at this point. There's the entire regulatory landscape that's there. That's kind of been changing quite fast and quite interestingly as well. Especially if I have to talk about insurance. The last few years has been tremendous in terms of the regulatory push from a development perspective. There have always been, those compliance requirements, but the development angle has really, come forefront in the last few years. So that's one aspect, the regulatory aspect. There is also, the entire evolution of industry as a whole. I mean, and how it's kind of reacting to the customers' needs, which are getting very nuanced today. Um, Social has kind of, absolutely settled in. I think plethora of social channels. Customers have really, taken up to it. Um, Smartphones, I mean, we don't need to talk about it. We are in the WhatsApp country that we are in India. So those things are all pretty established. So the customers have really, given their preference of, the choice of platforms, and also which does change also, which does mature with time. But clearly, they've kind of voiced their, preferences. That's one part of it. And clearly, quick commerce coming in has really, again, gotten a very different variable. Um, from a customer perspective, that means that, they're used to a certain level of service. Almost, I would say that, impatient in terms of, service delivery. I come from a typical service industry, so expecting the same kind of, a service delivery mechanism, comparable to the retail players, the QCC players, is something that is reality today. I mean, why would a customer want to wait for a policy for days when he can actually get stuff delivered to his home in 10 minutes? And there we are talking about real supply chain and logistics. Ideally, service industry like ours should be much more easier and smoother.
Yeah.
So clearly, the expectations, from the customers very well defined, and like I said, there is almost an impatience, if you kind of, don't stand up to that kind of a ask. The third thing is also the medium through which it's provided. There again, very clearly, customers have, have their own individual preferences. I, as a customer, might prefer WhatsApp. I don't have a habit of checking my messages. We'll have to kind of factor in, all of these nuances. So personalization has really, become very relevant even from this standpoint, on what is the communication medium which is effective for a particular customer. So that aspect has come in as well. Um, Put all of these together, and then, when you talk about what is the service or the product that you're offering on the table, there has to be that, the hyper personalization as well. Even in an industry like ours, which has been pretty slow in adapting to the customer's needs, we had been a tariff market for a very long time. There was not a lot of freedom in offering the products the way the customers would expect. But all this has changed. Regulator has facilitated that. Industry providers have facilitated that. It's a large ecosystem. So today, it's not just that stale, set of offerings that we have in the market. There's a lot of bundling which happens. Ecosystems have evolved where, all of this can happen. So all of these put together is kind of what is driving, the current transformation requirements. And it's a bit logical. The way I look at it, it's very intuitive as well. That you just have to follow the science from the market and make it easy and simple for consumption. So if you stick to some of these basics, I think you mentioned about, transformations, not working right. I really, don't understand. If you have some of these basics in order, how can you go wrong? It's the intent that matters. If you're addressing these concerns, I think you are on the right track.
I like how your entire response, you never use the word AI, even though I prompted it, because I think for you it's about the customer. Because a lot of what you said, right? Starting, there were, I think, two stakeholders in your mind. I could clearly see, of course, the regulator and how they've enabled and what is allowed in many ways, they define it, and then what the customer demands. I think in your head, it seemed like that is your mental framework, and everything else is like something that almost is like a toolkit for you, right? Like AI in many ways, therefore, would be something that facilitates this vision that you just laid out, isn't it? Right? Like how do what the impatience of the customer and the medium in which the customer is expecting to be personalized or wants personalized experiences to, I think it seems like that is a bigger priority to you, and everything else is almost like a toolkit. Is that a good way of looking at this?
Absolutely, well said. The what is what really matters. The how is what we talked about. I mean, AI, all the latest technology developments, all of that comes into the how. But, for me, getting the what is extremely important. And the how is clearly, how you go about, meeting that particular demand or the ask. And for me, again, maybe, my thinking has also evolved because for many years now, I've been kind of, wearing two hats. I've been running operations, customer service functions, handling stuff like renewals, direct business. So while I've also been handling technology has been a common thread throughout. But, since I've been wearing that other hat as well,
Yeah.
probably, the way I've evolved kind of, has gotten me into this frame of thinking.
Interesting, interesting. Yeah. So therefore, if you were to fast forward a little bit and coming back to my original question, and therefore, do you see the medium of delivery or the expectation of the customer changing because of AI? For example, you can see a very clear shift away from search as a primary medium, right? Like in which people would search for products, give a search term on Google, research a little bit, and then enter the, let's say, the HDFC ERGO website. That seems to be shifting as more people use LLMs or Chat GPT as a starting point. And of course, it's not too far out when, let's say, ChatGPT themselves might choose to, let's say, complete the lead process, or might interact with HDFC or go directly from the backend and then sort of provide the information that the customer wants. So, do you see any of this shift happening at all, or do you believe that things won't change too much, at least in the next 18-24 months?
But these changes are happening as we are talking. I think increasingly you will find many smartphone users having multiple LLMs in terms of on their phones. People use that to do a lot of their research or groundwork. Probably still not evolved into an industry, marketing industry, like how Google have built the search engine, optimization and the marketing places. But clearly, maybe that will also happen sometime soon. But the research, the groundwork definitely is already happening on some of these platforms. So yes, we have to keep that in mind. We'll have to ensure that the open data sets that companies like us make available. Again, this is a very important, aspect which I thought is critical in the days to come. A lot of the responses that come from the LLMs today is pretty accurate, but sometimes you do have a bit of the hallucination coming in. And for us as enterprises, it's important to look at what's the data that we are kind of making available on the open platforms, because finally the engines are going to get trained on this data, and your results are going to be only as accurate as what you are exposing to the internet and to the open data sets. So clearly, that's a responsibility. From a pure tech perspective, platforms, there are, from a social perspective, WhatsApp I see has been a pretty active, service delivery platform. It has graduated from just a communication to a service delivery platform. I've not seen many other platforms becoming successful as much as WhatsApp. So again, Insta has kind of been making inroads. YouTube has been making inroads on this front. We'll have to see how it really starts maturing as a real delivery platform, transactional delivery platform, be it on distribution or on service. But yeah, AI and bots will have a role to play in actually, in delivering the service. That definitely will be something that's expected to happen. Again, in a subject like insurance, which sometimes can be a bit difficult for the end consumer to absorb, that's really where the generative aspects of AI can really, help. We are already seeing a lot of use cases come through on that. But making it simple, making it easy to digest for the end consumer, so all of those aspects definitely, chat interfaces, the way some of these engines are maturing as we speak is really amazing. Just the last 6 months has seen some tremendous improvement. I remember, we had rolled out a voice bot some time back, and it was a pretty robotic voice, and you would kind of agree to this that it was almost coming to a point where customers were getting turned off by that robotic voice. And some very interesting, funny, comments that I've heard, when I kind of barged in into some of these calls. But today, that's all kind of become a thing of the past. The way some of these technologies have evolved, it's so natural and so convincing. And you try to throw off the bots by kind of moving from one language to another, kind of switch the context. It so beautifully, adapts to all of this. So this is all very good from an end consumer perspective, and I believe all of that will happen. It's already happening. But I guess, all of us will have to adopt this sooner than later.
So that thought on Gen AI and the use cases that you're running, I would love to come back to that. You gave voice as one example, but just to sort of summarize it, like if you were advising a digital transformation expert, I think the three things I heard from you is a the open data sets that you expose for some of these to some of these chatbots as they learn, make sure that it's accurate and as elaborate as possible. Just be very clear about what you're sharing out there. That is one learning that you called out. And second, of course, being that um, while you see WhatsApp as the primary service delivery mechanism or a very strong service delivery mechanism, you do see the role of AI and chatbots becoming a service delivery mechanism in the future, right? So you did talk about that. I want to come to you and specifically ask you about Gen AI use cases because you said you're running a few, voice being one of them. But uh, before that, what does this mean for some of the traditional offline delivery mechanisms that exist? For example, the role of the agent, right? And India still, let's face it, is a very agent-driven ecosystem, especially where things like insurance is concerned, right? So, how do you see the impact on that front, or how do you think people should align their strategy? Because people might still want that human element, but you need to empower maybe agents a bit more. So what are your thoughts there?
Absolutely. I think, you put it very rightly. I think um, the entire partner ecosystem is going nowhere. India is an economy which is built largely on relationships.
Very much.
Still a
Very.
lot of value to relationships. So, absolutely, we are very, very strongly wedded to that concept. And uh, there was a time when we used to build these, white label kind of, sites. Not every agent could afford to have a website of his own, so we used to white label and create a site for him. Something similar is what I see happening in the days to come. You will probably have some kind of a white label bot coming in into place. I'm just trying to loosely word it
Yeah, yeah.
for want of a better name.
Very
But
interesting. Yeah, yeah.
clearly, that's something that we need to do because the product offerings, like I said, we are now de-tariffed. Speaking about insurance, products are going to see a lot of innovation. It's
Mm.
going to be tough to handhold agents, keep them current on all the latest products, the features, the value adds, and all of that you have to offer. So that's where, this kind of a co-pilot or a bot, to assist the agent becomes very relevant. So it's almost like an executive assistant to the agent. So companies probably will start building these executive agents for assistant, executive assistant for agents, so that that makes their job easier to do, and also definitely makes them more productive in the process. So
Fantastic. No, I mean, this is a very interesting take, actually, right? So you spoke of how voice bots have really matured in the last 6 months, number one. You've spoken of already ideas existing that you already had about white label websites, and presumably technology hadn't reached a point where you could execute these at scale at the kind of agent ecosystem or feet on street that you probably have on the ground. But what I hear you now saying is that AI now actually allows you to combine these technologies, and the maturity is very quickly hitting that point, if it hasn't already, where you actually can imagine executive assistant to each agent that is guiding them on the complexity of products, which obviously is also proliferating, right? So that's a very, very remarkable take on where the industry is headed, actually. Very, very interesting point. Yeah.
and today, it's just about the art of imagining, and with Gen AI, to some extent, I think tech has also become very easy to implement, I would say.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
a lot of the real thinking and engineering that you had to do. Today, things have been simplified a lot more. And of course, there are, partners like you who also kind of get all of this innovation to the table quicker and faster, and also making it easier to absorb within large corporations, because there's always been this integration fatigue. All the large companies have this huge ecosystem of applications, and kind of plug it and make it work seamlessly. That's always been a challenge, but
Mm.
now there are API gateways to support Gen AI. There's so much of monitoring that can be done. There's some very intuitive kind of support mechanism that's evolving. So all of the things are kind of falling in place at the right time.
Fantastic. One question which I have always asked everybody, every time I've spoken to a CTO or a CDO or a technology leader is sometimes CTO function is often looked at as somebody that is almost like a support function, supporting the rest of the org. Like oftentimes requirements originate from the business otherwise, right? Um, I would love to understand if you were to purely look at, let's say, customer experience and maybe marketing as the goal, right? How do you see the CTO function contributing strategically, right? I would love to understand, like for example, maybe there are elements of customer data in terms of centralizing it that the CTO function might own strategically, managing privacy, trust. These are some points that I could think of, but I would love to get your kind of views on this.
Again, I think there was this entire question about CTO being more a back office kind of a function till a few years back. Um, to a large extent, that's gone. Most CTOs that I'm aware of are part of the boardroom on this discussing strategy and critical aspects for growth of the company. So clearly, most companies have evolved, to a stage where they see technology as being a central piece of the entire, business strategy. So that's something that hopefully, is a thing of the past. I don't see, us regressing back to that kind of a stage. But having said that, clearly it's also important for the technology folks to be able to, understand the business aspects and kind of make them, relevant from overall, growth and strategy perspective. So, but as long as some of those things are met, I think clearly, there is recognition to the fact that, all of these latest technologies, again, think about it, be it distribution, be it, servicing, claims is a very important part of the business where I am currently. So all of these, uh, technology and digital in general, but AI has kind of become centerpiece to pretty much all of these processes. So you really can't think of any process, even typical HR processes, finance processes. It could be recruitment, it could be reconciliation, all of that. There is no conversation that goes without the mention of AI and Gen AI coming in. And if you have to make justice to that kind of a conversation, you need the technology person there. While people have a understanding, of the broader aspects of what can AI do, how can GI, Gen AI kind of drive efficiencies, there are also the important aspects, like you rightly said, data security, ensuring data privacy is maintained, ensuring that you're not compromising on certain controls and checks and balances. All of that is something that the tech person has to get onto the table. And if you compromise on any of these, very quickly, what is traditionally a big support for you can become an enemy to you
Yes.
if you don't do things right. And that's where I see the technology function evolving more into a mentor kind of a role where you have to kind of democratize. There was a time when we started democratizing data, a few years back. Now it's the age of, democratizing AI consumption across the company. So you need to give freedom to functions to kind of explore it, but you definitely have to be the conscience keeper, the architect to ensure that things are done right and doesn't expose the company in any way. Because today, again, going back to insurance, liability is a very important subject. And I can see, there are very interesting liability claims coming to us where very large corporations are held accountable for things which you are not directly in control of. So I think that's where technology and the tech leaders have to evolve to be that kind of a mentor who kind of guides and puts the guardrails so that the company is on the right track and it's not getting exposed to all the malicious intent.
Fantastic. I love that. And I think my one takeaway that I'm taking from this conversation is specifically, I think you spoke of tech and the tech function being the conscience keeper in many ways, by actually forcing certain guardrails into experimentation, which allows the freedom to experiment with technologies like AI, like you said, which is super critical to succeed, right? The democratization of AI, I love that phrase, by the way. But then having those guardrails, which is sort of tech control, right? But going back to the point where you said that maybe a few years back, it was perceived the CTO function might have been perceived as being more back office, etc. Do you see COVID as like the defining point that maybe brought the change firmly? It's making this shift permanent, you would say. And do you see AI sort of acting as the accelerating force that ensures that this never regresses? Because you said it's unlikely will regress.
I think COVID definitely accelerated that transformation. But I think it all started when the government actually, in our case, in India, started becoming, really, hyperactive in terms of, reimagining the entire infrastructure. The famous Jam Trinity and all those, which was even preceded before by the mission mode projects, which the government started almost in early 2000s. So, all of that, I think there's been a very steady kind of a focus on creating that digital infrastructure. If you had not had that, I think, it would have been all of what we are seeing today would have probably, it would still have happened, but at a much lower pace. So that's one. And second, obviously, the insurance, not just insurance, the entire industry, the way it's kind of evolved, that's also, been very interesting. Look at today. I mean, the insurtechs and fintechs of today, they really don't let you rest. I mean, every day there's somebody who's coming out there with some new offering. You have to be on your feet all the time. So, it's a mix of all of this very, very dynamic environment we are in, which is probably definitely, accelerated by COVID and developments like Gen AI, which have now happened. But I think I would probably, give credit to some of our leaders who saw some of this coming and maybe, helped accelerate that entire transformation.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I think, Sriram, with that, we come to the end of the podcast. I thought there were some incredible insights there, and I especially loved your take on where the industry could go 18, 24 months down the line. It seems futuristic, but at the same time, certainly very much within the realm of possibility, and some of your other responses as well. Thank you so much. It was fantastic having you on the podcast, and really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Subra. It's been a pleasure.